the 20. You can't. Well, then I'm not going to tell you when it is. Because you're going to have it on recording that Sims gave it away. So, right, no.
Oh, come on, Steve. Come on.
Can't be doing it now. Can't be doing it now. You lured me.
Yeah, I'll get it out of you later.
Yeah, I know you will.
We do have a couple more people that'll probably come on. So we'll pause here for another minute or so. But I thought, at the beginning, I would tell everybody, hey, we're recording this. And if they don't want to, they'll get off. And then I'll introduce the ladies to you, and then I'll introduce Steve. And I'm recording it because some people can't be here. And the awesomeness of this particular meeting is got to be recorded. And
I'm just glad I'm the best looking guy in this lineup. That's all I'm happy about.
And if any F-bombs come in, I'll just bleep it, on the recording.
I won't. I'll be a good boy. I've been told.
Sure. Sure. Well, we're 1 minute in. Hopefully others will come in as we go. But let me start with saying that this meeting is recorded. And if you don't want to be part of the recording, please do log off. And I got to say that I'm going to introduce Steve next. I want to introduce these ladies to you, Steve. They're probably some of the most dynamic entrepreneurs you'll ever meet outside of Genius Network. I mean, they have to wear all the hats, right? They're wealth managers. They're taking care of people's portfolios and taxes, et cetera. But they also have to wear lots of different hats, like, taking out the trash, vacuuming, being the HR person, the marketing person, the salesperson. And hopefully we'll get some hints from you on sales and other wonderful things. But, we met at the beginning of the year, and a lot of these ladies have some huge goals, and some shared that they want to just maintain. So everybody's up to a different game, but it's a wonderful dynamic group of ladies. And ladies, I met Steve in about 2014 at a mastermind group called CEG. And at that time, I actually signed up for his Bluefish concierge service, and he'll tell us about that in a little bit. But Forbes magazine and Entrepreneur magazine has called him the real life Wizard of Oz. And, I've got to say, it's probably got to be just in how he does things, because I got to tell you, Steve stands way up here, and he's got these big muscles, and the Wizard of Oz, wasn't he a little guy that stood on a box? I mean, right?
Wasn't he a dirty old pervert behind a curtain?
That's pretty much it. So I think that they're calling you the Wizard of Oz only because of what you get done, the magic that you do. Yeah. Now, Steve is he's an author, like many of us who've written a book. He's a best-selling author. It's called Bluefishing. So you got to go check out Bluefishing, because it's the art of making things happen. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, we're lucky to have him here. Thank you, Steve, because he's so sought after as a speaker. He helps out with coaching at networks, groups, associations, and the Pentagon. The Pentagon, Steve? What?
Yeah, that was fun.
That was fun. Did you have to take your phone out and your keys and?
Oh, there's. I'll tell you a weird story about that if you want me to.
We're recording.
Yeah, well, that's fine. It may if it happens again, you'll see what I'm talking about. But when I got contacted, I was told to reveal it to no one, but I had to then submit documentation, ID. I had to go to the local police station for an updated fingerprint. It was quite something to get this stuff done. And then I got a call saying that, okay, it looks good. We'll come back to you. And I was like, great. And I phoned up a buddy of mine in my car. And I said, hey, you're not going to believe this, but I just got a call from the Pentagon, and they've invited, and the phone went dead. And so I quickly phoned my mate again, not just dead, turned off. Okay. So I turned the phone, and then you want to know, when you turn on an iPhone, it takes a couple of minutes and it's very aggravating. So I phoned my mate again. I went, sorry about that, buddy. Look, yeah, I just got a call and I'm going to the Pentagon. Phone goes again. Okay. So by this time I got home and I couldn't be bothered again. And I went to the Pentagon, and we had a night before event, And I had a couple of whiskeys. You know, I don't really do that, you know, but occasionally I will consume. And I had a couple of whiskeys. I was talking to this guy that was from the Pentagon, was going to be leading us around the following day. And he was some kind of like 3-star general kind of thing. And I told him this funny story about how my phone kept breaking. And he went, yeah. And I went, well, isn't it funny that I mentioned the word Pentagon and my phone went down? He said, you don't think we didn't know every single one of your movements before you got here? And I was like, okay. So, you know, that was a bit scary.
And he meant it.
He meant it. Oh, absolutely meant it. Absolutely meant it. I don't know what was going on, but I had to give them, I had to contact them from, I had an iPad, a phone, and 2 laptops at the time. And I had to do an email and respond to it from all electronic devices in our house so that they knew my URL settings or whatever it is. But yeah, no, it was a scary, scary little thing.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I didn't know about that.
No, I didn't. It was kind of a little bit like,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you know, ladies, you might have some questions for Steve. I'll start out with a few and we'll go from there. And, you know, just chime right in if you have any questions or want to comment on anything. But Steve, so do you want to start like at the beginning and where you got to Bluefish and then Blue Fishing in the book, or do you want to start and go backwards? Like you want to talk about the book first and go back to Bluefish, or?
I don't want to do either. Oh, I'm going to go down a different route. Okay?
Let's do it.
Looking at the crowd here, they don't want to hear about when I was born and all that kind of stuff. But like all of us here, and like every single person on this video, we're aggravated for greatness. We want more. If you didn't want more, if you didn't want to be better, you wouldn't be on this call today. Okay? You could certainly take the time doing something else, but you are aggravated to demand more for yourself. As a kid growing up in East London, I never had any money. And I thought of myself as a bricklayer, I'm getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning and going home at 8. So I'm obviously working long days. So I don't mind grafting and getting smacked up and cut up. So how come I'm not rich? I was working hard, but I wasn't rich. And that aggravated me. And it aggravated me to go further. In fact, a friend of ours, a joint friend of ours, Joe Polish, always says, aggravated oysters make pearls. Now, I realized one day when I was sitting in an East End biker bar, and I looked around at all of my buddies, and they were all like, you know, big ass bikers, could afford maybe 2 beers, and that was about it. And I suddenly realized I'm part of this room. I am one of the, I am the room that I am in. So I demanded to move rooms, and I actually used that as a reason to try and get into better rooms where they challenge me, they push me, they aggravate me to demand greatness. Through that program, I ended up launching a concierge firm for no other reason. And, you know, Christy knows me. I'm not warm and fuzzy. I'm quite an introvert. I'm quite quiet. I don't want to go around hugging people. You know, I love Christy. So I was glad when she reached out and said, would I do this? But, you know, for a lot of people, I'm like, oh, no, I'm busy and I'll make up an appointment. But I wanted to get in a room with affluent people and go, hey, why are you successful and I'm not? That was it. I just wanted to ask that direct question. And 25 years later, I had the world's largest experiential concierge firm. But I want to give you a little story that will explain to you the kind of things I do, but then a very powerful lesson that benefits you, if I have permission, Christy. Is that all right?
Please do.
So I was in Rome, this is like 6 years ago now, and I've been retained to get a couple married in the Vatican by the Pope. So I was working in Rome for about 7 months. And I get a phone call from a client on a Sunday afternoon saying that he was taking his fiance and the future mother-in-law and father-in-law into Florence, and he needed me to set up the best dining experience I could to make him look all powerful. So following morning, I bundled down on the train down to Florence and made it happen. On the Wednesday night, and now let me get a hand up. Anyone here been to Florence? 2? My God. Next time you're asked that question, be proud. 3. Thank you for popping on, Kerry. Next time someone asks that question, you've got to have made sure you've been. It's the first place I'm going to this Europe. In fact, I got my ticket 3 days ago. So love Florence. But when you get there, you'll be surprised. It was the former capital of Italy, and it's very, very, very small. Very small. All cobblestone. So Wednesday night comes along. This had been 2 days, bearing in mind, for me being up in Rome. My client gets picked up by a horse-drawn carriage outside the Savoy Hotel, which is the main square of Florence. Now, you can circle Florence in 10 minutes on a horse-drawn carriage. So this guy was going up the back streets, back again. He was really taking his time. He pulls up outside the Accademia della Galleria, which is one of the oldest museums in the planet. Client jumps out, starts banging on the door. And this is 9 o'clock at night. Another thing you'll get to find out when you go to Florence is it's quite a sleepy town. If you look at a party, you don't go to Florence, okay? 10:30, most people are finishing up and heading for bed. I'm old and grumpy. That's what I like. So he starts banging on the door. The fiance is kind of getting a bit upset that he's making so much noise on the door. The mother-in-law and father-in-law are looking at him thinking, wow, we've got a psychopath coming into the family. Carries on banging. And she turns around, she's like, don't be doing that. You can't be doing that. And they're from North Europe. And so she's telling him in her language that, you can't be doing that. Bang, bang. And he says, look, inside this museum is Michelangelo's David. The Accademia della Galleria is the museum that houses the only piece of Michelangelo's work outside of Rome. And it is the most iconic statue in the world. I'm hoping there's a security guard in there, a cleaner, something. I can slip him $1,000 and we can go and get to see David. Bang, 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 carries on banging. As he's banging, the doors open up and there is a red carpet lined up all the way to the feet of Michelangelo's David, rose petals on it. And at the bottom of this carpet is a table for 6 set up so that they can have dinner at the feet of Michelangelo's David. I had taken over the entire museum from 3 o'clock in the afternoon till 2 o'clock in the morning and set up a dinner date for him with a 4-piece string quartet. Okay, that's what I did for him to have an Italian dining experience that would impress his mother-in-law and father-in-law. I told him I would get a local entertainer to come in and serenade them during their pasta. I brought in Andrea Bocelli to serenade them while he was doing this. Okay. That's the stuff that I do. That was the kind of stuff I did, the kind of clients that I dealt with, okay? But here's the story that makes it interesting. I have never introduced myself ever. That's something I want you to do. Try to avoid introducing yourself. The only reason you're paying attention to me on this phone, in fact, let me ask quite simply, how many of you Googled me before you knew I was going to be on this call? 2. Okay. So would it be fair to say, and a good assumption, that you're only putting up with me based on the credibility of the introduction from Christy? Exactly. I'm going to go a little bit further and I'm going to play a little game because I like to pick on people. So who shall I pick on here? All right. Dawn Marie, unmute yourself. Only because she looked a little bit scared at the time. How are you?
I'm great.
All right, so I'm going to play a little game with you. Is it Dawn or Dawn Marie?
Dawn Marie.
There you go. So good you got 2 names. All right, so here we go. I walk into a pub, all right? It's been known to happen. I walk up to you and I say, hey, how are you? My name's Steve Sims. I've worked with Elon Musk, Elton John and the Pope. I'm a big deal. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
How do you feel about that introduction? Be truthful.
It's okay.
But inside you're vomiting.
Yeah, it didn't do much.
It did.
I could have walked away.
It aggravated. It wound you up. Is there anyone here, and you can put a hand up, is there anyone here that would be compelled to spend the entire evening with me if I was bold enough to walk up and make that intro to you? Or did it go the other way? Hands up. How many people did it repel? All right. We've basically got everyone here. So let's flip this, Dawn Marie. I walk into a pub. Now you're in there with Christy. and I ignore you. Why shouldn't I? We don't know each other. I walk up to the end of the bar, put my crash helmet down, get me old fashioned, and Christy elbows you in the ribs and says, Dawn Marie, you see that guy over there? He's worked with Elon Musk, Elton John, and the Pope. That guy's a big deal. Now, what do you want to do, Dawn Marie?
I want to talk to you.
The information was exactly the same, but the point, the source was vastly different. The source was credible. So the information is never important. The source is important. Thanks for playing the game, Dawn Marie. So that's what I do. I've never, ever gone and introduced myself to anyone because, let's be blunt, you ain't going to let me through the front door. But if I get someone that you respect, hey, now we've got through to like, how are you? What do you do? Are you any good? You know, we've gone past all of that. So I had some very powerful people get me the door of the Accademia di Galleria and some very powerful people that got me the attention of Andrea Bocelli. I always go to other people to make the introduction. Okay. So the day before, when I had the place booked, I had the chef booked, I had Andrea Bocelli booked, Veronica was there, that's his wife, was helping me put it together. I went into the Accademia di Galleria, I met up with one of the heads of it, and they gave me this curator, this 5'5", 160-pound sopping wet Italian guy with a cravat and a waistcoat. Tiny little fella. I'm 245 pounds of ugly. So it was kind of quite a little picture of height, size, and look difference. Christy, I tell you, black t-shirt and jeans forever. But this is quite wild because I've got some white writing on it. So he was the curator that was going to help me put this event together. And I said to him, hey, it's a pleasure to meet you. By the way, tomorrow night, we're going to have the piano delivered into the Accademia. I need the front doors open at 6 p.m. sharp. All right? And he looks at me and he went, and I apologize about the Italian accent, but it's for ambience reasons only. He looks at me and he went, we'll see what I can do. Now, when you're dealing with a client like I'm dealing with, and when you're dealing with the people that have got me where I got, you don't want to, I will see what I can do. In fact, that annoys. And I said to him, Andrea Bocelli's going to be turning up at 7 o'clock. I need him to come through the back door. I need security to be there ready to have him come in. Hey, it should be no problem. Every question I asked him, I got the exact same kind of response. Zero commitment. I'll see what I can do. Shouldn't be a problem. It should be all right. All that kind of stuff. I put up with that for like 36 hours. On the evening, I've got the table set up, chefs in there, tables all laid up. The piano's there. Andrea's son's on the piano. Andrea is warbling. And what they were doing was they would move the piano 5 feet. And if any of you know about pianos, anytime you move it, you got to tune that little puppy. They would move it, tune it, hit a few notes, warble away, pick it up, move it 5 feet, tune it, warble it. This piano danced around the bass of Michelangelo's David so that it didn't get too much reverb. As this is happening, I'm chatting with Veronica Bocelli, and the curator is leaning up against the wall of the museum. Now, Veronica had to go off, and this is where my immatureness comes out. And I looked at this curator, and I thought, all right, this is where he gets an Irish slap. This is where he gets taught a lesson for messing with me. You know, he's aggravated me. You don't do that. This is how he gets to know it. So I went, hey, you know, come on over here, come on. So he wanders all over, cravat and all. And I'm looking down at him because he's short. And I said to him, look at that table. Isn't that a beautiful table? We had a top local chef in there and laid it all out in this gold linen and, you know, handmade plates. Isn't that the prettiest table you've ever seen? He's like, it is beautiful. It is wonderful. And I went, and look at the view. In fact, in the thread, I'll send Christy a picture of this so she can show you what it actually looked like. And I went, look at that view. Is there a prettier table, a prettier view to have an Italian meal tonight? You know, Michelangelo's David, the most iconic. Is there any prettier view for an Italian meal? He's like, no, it is tremendous. It is fantastic. I went, well, up a bit. We got Andrea Bocelli, who basically is one notch under the Pope as the Italian icon, serenading you while you're munching to your pasta. Can it get any better than that? And he's like, no, it's fantastic. It's brilliant. So this is where I came in for the slap. So I went, so tell me, how come I managed to pull it off? Now, this is where I was expecting something like, no one can negotiate like you. No one's as connected as you. No one's as good looking as you. Any of those I would have accepted to repair my ego. But he looked up at me and literally said, no one's ever asked. And I crumbled. I physically folded. I had the wind taken out of me. And I stood up, rose up again to see this little guy grinning, knowing full well that it actually got me. From that night, we became very dear friends. In fact, I said to you that I'm going back to Florence this year. It's his birthday. That's why I'm actually going back to be with him. Been with him every single year. We joke that he's my Italian brother. And he tells this aggravating story about how he got me. Every Italian that will ever bloody listen to him. But when I left there and I went back to the US, on the way back, I got my little pad out and I made a note of quite a long list of remarkable things I had done and the people that I had dealt with. And then when I got back to America, I actually phoned them all up and I went, hey, we haven't spoken for ages. How you doing? Do you remember when we did this? Hey, I just want to ask you, how come we managed to do that? I was testing myself. I was trying to find out how I had been able to pull off these things and get noticed by, as Christy was saying, Forbes, an entrepreneur, and Wall Street Journal. In fact, the owner of the Robb Report actually put a personal letter of introduction in every copy of the Robb Report a few years ago. So how did I have this? And as I asked every single person, they all came back to me with, you asked. And I realized there is a danger within intelligence, because that intelligence will often have you look at something and go, I couldn't do that. That couldn't happen for me. That couldn't happen to me. I could never achieve that. Christy will validate I have the superpower of ignorance and stupidity. My wife has openly said I've never overthought anything in my life. And I met her when she was 16 and I was 17. And dear Lord, thank you that she's still with me in my rock. But she says that I do and then think about it afterwards. Now, have I got in trouble doing it that way? More than once, as you can guess. But Jay Abraham says I have a greater ICANN than an IQ. The danger today is that we overthink what's possible or plausible. I am begging every single person on this call. We know you're already aggravated for greatness. Stop using your intelligence to dictate what is achievable. Get stupid for a few seconds and dream and then go for that. Okay? Because it's amazing what happens when you ask. You stand the danger of getting it.
So, Steve, how can you discern, if you're making it overly complicated? I mean, if we're always used to doing the same thing every time, that's what we know how to do. So how can we change how we're thinking?
Yeah, the trouble is we get stupider by overcomplicating things. We get in a business and we're like, oh, well, we've got to get a website and I've got to get a CRM and I've got to get a ClickFunnels. I better start doing some Facebook advertising. I better do this. And we confuse the whole point. You only have one job. And your job is because what you do, somebody else couldn't do. So they outsourced it to you. And in exchange, you gave them an invoice. As an entrepreneur, we solve people's problems by swapping it with their credit card. That's what we do. Okay. We're paid so that they don't have to do it. You need to understand, therefore, what are you? You're a solution. End of it. You are a solution. You are there to solve someone else's pain. Stop overcomplicating it and start focusing on the problems. When you're talking to a client, tell them the problems that you solve or ask them, do they have those problems? Give you an idea. Branding, for argument's sake. How many of you have focused on the branding of your own business or website? Quite a lot. Everyone. How well has that gone for you? So let me break it down to you about a myth. Okay. Do you know what branding is? Branding, you can write this down or check out the recording later. Branding is what someone says about you when you've walked out the room. If you sell purple, green, and yellow shoes, and you walk out the room and everyone in the room says you sell yellow shoes, guess what your brand is? You're the person that sells yellow shoes. I want you cynically to go back to your website and your social feeds and ask yourself truthfully, does this reflect who I am, or is this the persona I'm putting on? I actually put a post in today, which has aggravated a few people on Instagram, that I said something, I think it was, I better bloody look up the damn thing or I'm going to get it wrong. I put on there, is your brand really good or really you? There's a lot of people out there that complicate it. Your website makes you look perfect. You know, you've photoshopped it a bit to get rid of those extra few pounds. It's given the beautiful perfection of you and what you stand for, but it's not you. Here's another little strange thing to see how good you really are at branding, okay? I want you to help yourself today. This is a test you do on a desktop. This test cannot be done on an iPhone or a tablet or a single browser. It has to be done on a machine that's got a screen big enough to open up multiple browsers, okay? What I want you to do is I want you to open up every social platform you have, okay? LinkedIn, Facebook, Tinder, Twitter, whatever. Open up every single one of your social pages and then look at the picture. That's the first thing. Look at the picture. Isn't it amazing that on LinkedIn, we've got a suit on, we're all looking a bit sharp. We get over to Facebook and it's Girls Gone Wild. Isn't it funny how we think, well, we've got to be a little bit different on Facebook than we have over here? And you look at your bio. Is your bio word for word the same on LinkedIn that it is on Facebook, that it is on Twitter, that it is on Instagram, that it is on Pinterest? If not, do you know what you're doing to your clientele? You're confusing the hell out of them. Most people, before they do business with you, they will check you out. They will do this thing called Google me. And they will check you out on social platforms. And if you're showing that you're 2 different characters, 3 different characters, 4 different characters, then no confused prospect is ever going to give you a credit card. You've got to change that up. Look at Apple. Look at Nike. Is Apple different on LinkedIn than it is on Twitter? Is it different on Facebook than it is on TikTok? No. Why? Because it's crafted a voice and tone that is impossible to misunderstand. Yeah. I urge you this afternoon to look at, we call it a social fingerprint. We do it for all of our clients when we first coach them, to find out not only where you show up, but how you show up, and are you actually confusing rather than clarifying?
Oh, I like that. Confusing rather than clarifying. Yeah. Now, one of the things that I've known you for more, Steve, especially back when you had the concierge service, and you also have to tell why you went away from that and what you're doing now. But I think about the people that you, like Bocelli, for one of my groups, you were looking at getting Ellen DeGeneres to have lunch with us. So walk us through how you make that ridiculous call, that one that would make me sweat to make that call. How do you do that?
Well, I've given you the answer already. I don't. What I do is I find somebody else to make the call for me, and then I just go in there to put my position forward. Okay.
So you're never really sweating it out then?
I'm never sweating it out. I'm never doing the first intro. You've never seen me intro myself to anybody. I will have people come up to me, and if we're in a party, for argument's sake, and I'm there with Christy, and someone comes over to me and they go, hey, how are you? We don't know each other. What do you do? In that situation, and if I'm stood next to Christy, I'll be like, yeah, Christy, you tell him. You know, I'll make a joke of it, but I will deflect the question. If the person is one of those typical kind of business card collectors at a networking event that you pray you never see again, I tell them that I am a toilet technician, a plumber, or that I work at a gas station. Or I told him I'm actually a valet boy, but I'm on a break, so I just popped in to get a free drink. I will lie and get rid of them. Okay? Yeah. I will always do those kind of things. But I've never introduced Andrea Bocelli. I have a little joke kind of thing calling Go for Stupid. In fact, that's going to be the name of our next book. We haven't finished it yet, but that's the name of the next book. Go for Stupid. Elon Musk once said to me, go for stuff that people will laugh at because they will laugh at you before they applaud. And I really love that. And I always went for the stupid. What's the most stupid thing I can get? Not the most impossible. You're clarifying it's impossible. Subconsciously, you're already saying, hey, I'm going to go for the impossible, but you're already, putting it in concrete that it's not going to be achievable. Never understood that statement. Go for what people will laugh at you about. So when I looked at getting an entertainer in Italy, who's the most iconic entertainer in Italy? Came up as Andrea Bocelli. My task wasn't then, how do I contact Andrea Bocelli? My task was, who do I know that Andrea Bocelli would listen to? Now, I worked for Elton John for 8 years. He's pretty well known even in Italy. I contacted him. Elton John contacts Andrea Bocelli. Did I not just walk in that door with credibility? And that's how I did it. But I also checked out what Andrea Bocelli did and what he was looking into and what his passion was. And I found out that he actually had a cancer foundation. So when I approached him, I said, hey, thank you very much for taking the time. I'm going to be asking you about something that I'm trying to put together in Tuscany. But before I do, I want to talk about your cancer foundation. How long has it been going? Why was it so important to you?
Nice. Yeah.
I'm getting into what's passionate. I'm talking to Andrea Bocelli about a foundation that him and Veronica actually set up. Thank you very much for giving me that information. In fact, if we can put everything together, I would like to be responsible for making sure there's a major donation into that charity. Would that be of interest to you? Before I've even asked him to sing at a table of 4, there was actually 6 people in the end, 5. Before I tell him that I'm going to have him singing to his smallest ever crowd, I got him interested in speaking about himself and getting a commitment from me that I would put some money into his charity. Then I told him, in order for this to happen, would you be willing to come? You're only just down the road. I know you live in Tuscany. I'm going to be in Florence. This is where I wanted to be. And have you ever sang at the feet of Michelangelo's David before? No, was the answer. Then let's make history happen. So none of it was around the money. We never focused any of it around the money. We focused it around what he was passionate about, alluding to the tease that I would put money into his charity. Hey, if he plays ball with me, and then getting him involved in a historical memory. And that's what it was. That's how you pull those things off. You get them engaged. You want to see a celebrity or a person of power walk away from you? This is what you say to them. How much would it cost me? And that's it. I was stood next to Elton John, and this guy came up that had just spent I think it was about $250,000 on an event during the auction of the Sir Elton John Oscar party in LA. Was a big spender, and Elton was saying thank you to him for donating that money to the charity. And the guy turned around. He could have easily have done it better than this, but he turned around and he went, hey, I'm having a barbecue. How much would it cost me to get you to sing at my barbecue party? And Elton turned around and he said, I'd love to, but I'm busy. And walked off. He didn't mention days, didn't mention dates, didn't do any of that. He'd already lost him the second he tried to prostitute him. You don't want to be a transaction. You want to be a solution and an impact. That's the focus.
Yeah, and I think what I heard, Steve, is a lot of how you think about things, because I've been in a mastermind group where they actually talked about and had us set down our impossible goals, our possible dreams. And I like how you're saying, well, that already it's impossible in my mind.
It's already wrong. You've just, it's so easy. And that's the thing. You say, hey, I'm going to go for this. It's impossible, but I'm going to go for it. You've just given yourself the clause. You can come back and go, oh, well, you know, and Dawn Marie can turn around and go, well, it is impossible. You did say it was, but you were going for it is impossible. You've already given yourself that out.
Yeah.
Remove the out and go for what's stupid.
So ladies, do you all have, I have more questions, but if you want to ask Steve anything, anybody, Terry? Come on. Yeah.
Trying to find the button. Hello, Steve, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good, I'm gonna try to find this, there we go. Now,
No,
there we go.
Okay.
Yep, I was holding down the space bar that I learned recently. But you know, of course, we would all love to have Elton John or, you know, the famous singer in the area, or Ellen DeGeneres. Oh my gosh, you know, have her come talk to us or have lunch with us, as Christy mentioned. But you know, I don't have $250,000 to give to a charity. I don't know Ellen DeGeneres' most famous friends. I do understand what you're saying, but on a smaller scale, when you're trying to reach someone you've never talked to before and maybe you don't know their friends, what would you suggest that we do to reach out to someone like that?
So I'd like to break this down into two responses. Have you noticed how many seconds it takes for someone to say what they really want? And then how many seconds it takes them to then go into the excuses why it could never happen? You wanted to meet all of those people, and then without me asking, you just went into the reasons why it would never happen. Psychologically, that's what a lot of people do. They go, oh, I'd love to play piano with Sir Elton John. 1 second. But he wouldn't play. I don't even know how to play piano. I don't even know how I could get. And then you go into the excuse. We have that as a default mechanism. Kill that default mechanism. Now, I can talk to you and drop all the names under the sun, but let's be blunt. I didn't start that way. I didn't start by phoning up Elon Musk and Richard Branson. I worked my way up it. No one walks onto the roof. You get there by climbing up a ladder. What you've got to do, so let's say for argument's sake, Christine Wagner there, okay? Hope I haven't butchered your name. Terry doesn't know her at all, but desperately wants to meet her to talk about business, okay? Enter with a passion project. What I would do to Kristen, if I didn't know who Kristen was, you know, in this situation, I'd obviously go to Christy and get her to make the introduction. But if I didn't know who Kristen was, I would Google her or go onto her social feeds. And I would look up what she does for pleasure. Is she part of a charity? Does she have kids? Does she play around with horses? Does she drive sports cars? What are her passions that are exposed? Because have you noticed, and I'd pretty much say I was right here, you know, going out on a limb, none of your websites depict what you do in your life. They depict what you do. Yet your social feeds show the restaurants you go to, the food you're into, who you're playing, where you go out. So there's the life and the relatability. Here's your work. Here's you. So with Kristen, I would try and find out, you know, what she's involved in, what she's passionate about, what kind of project she's doing. And then I would try and get someone in my group, and it's very easy. If I search Kristen this afternoon, there's probably a handful of people that we're in the same group as, especially within social. It's a bloody small world out there. And so I would go to those people. Do you know this girl, Kristen? I noticed that she's into horse riding. I really want to connect with her. Could you make the introduction? Well, I don't really know her. She's another person I'm in a group. Well, make the introduction to that person. You've got to go through a number of leaps before you can get into the gravitational pull of Kristen. Okay? And then here's how the conversation goes. You get someone to introduce you to Kristen. But let's say, for argument's sake, you don't have that time. So I'm going to go at the ugliest, rawest level. You contact Kristen direct. And you will say this. And Kristen's not Elon Musk. Kristen's Kristen. Okay? You contact her and you say, hey, Kristen, thank you for taking the call. You don't know me. That's the first thing you do. You don't know me. Say that. Have you ever seen celebrities? And when I say celebrity, this could be just someone who's famous in your neighborhood. And people go up to them and they go, hey, Christy, hey, Dawn Marie, hey, Terry, how are you? They may have seen you on something. They may, think they know you through a podcast or something. The person receiving it is going, do I know this person? Are they friends at school? They get nervous. They're sitting there in their head going, what does this person want? So get that out of the way. Stop making Kristen think. Go up to Kristen and go, hey, Kristen, how are you? You don't know me, but I do know that you're into horses and you have a charity for saving left-legged butterflies. I think that's very commendable. I personally like left-legged butterflies as well. How did you get into that? Get her talking about what she's passionate about. That's the first step. So you've cleared up, you've come in with clarity. You don't know who I am, but I wanted to reach out to you about a project. But before I get into that project, I saw you into left-legged butterflies. Okay? You start getting her talk about it, and you get a relation. You talk. Why was that important to you? I've gone up to people that are into wine. I hate wine. I really don't like it at all. Christy's never seen me with a glass of wine in my hand. I was gutted 2 years ago at the Genius Network event. The after party was put together by some bloody vineyard, and it was all these wines, and I'm like, sod it. No whiskey in sight, was very unhappy. But I would go up to people that I wanted to talk to at that event, and I'd go, I don't like wine. Why do you? It's a very funny way to start a conversation. But if they go, well, do you know much about wine? I don't know anything about wine. Help me out here. And they start talking to me about what they like. That's the easiest way to do it. And then at the end of it, go, hey, Kristen, thank you very much for educating me on those butterflies. I wanted to have the conversation with you. You've built up a relationship already. Bearing in mind, Terry, you have a client bank. You have a platform. If Kristen's trying to save money for these weird butterflies, you may turn around and go, hey, I'd love to put something about this on my newsletter. Would that be of interest to you? Hell yeah, I want to save those butterflies. Great. Let me put it on the bottom of my newsletter for you. I've gone up to very big authors going, hey, I hear there's a book number 2 coming out or book number 3. How would you like to get it out into the hands of some pretty impressive people so they can tell their crowd about it? Would that be of assistance to you? Hell yeah, great. Be on my podcast next Tuesday. Give someone a reason for talking to you. When the academia, the Galleria, the museum, when I contacted them, because I'd been introduced and they were told, listen to Steve Sims, he does stuff. I contacted them and I said, thank you for taking my call. I know you don't know me, but I'm very grateful that such and such introduced us. Before I get into what it is I want, so the engineering is exactly the same. Before I get into what I want, I hear that you're having a gala later on this year. What's the purpose? Well, our roof is falling apart. It's over 100 years old and we've got to repair it. And these roofs in museums have to be fire resistant, blah, 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 blah. That sounds costly. It is costly. We've got to save a lot of money to get into that. Well, how would it be if we actually gave you a quarter of the budget before you even designed the flyer? Would that be of interest to you? What do you think my answer was? Then I just, basically, I was turning it on them to do what they needed to do to get me. I now wasn't asking them to do something for me. I was providing them an opportunity to get what they wanted. Does that make sense, Terry? Did it answer it?
Yes, it did answer. Thank you very much.
Doesn't matter who you're dealing with. You could be talking to the head of the parents committee at your local school. You could be talking to Sir Richard Branson. But enter into every conversation with value. If I may, Christy, I've got a little game to play. All right? And I know everyone here is going to get it. Everyone's here is going to get it. So, Kristen, I'm going to pick on you. All right? So get yourself off mute. All right. So I'm having a party this Saturday night. I'm having a barbecue. And I turn around to you, Kristen, and I'd say, hey, you want to come to my barbecue Saturday night? And you go, yes. What's the first question you ask me?
Where is this barbecue?
Great question. Where is the barbecue? Location. What's the second question you ask me?
What time is it?
What time is it? Brilliant. You've got to make sure you're on time. You've got to know where it is. What's the third question you asked me?
Oh, what can I bring?
It took 3 answers before you did anything that benefited me. I had invited you to my party, was followed by 2 selfish questions that looked after you before you thought about me. Okay? Think about every relationship as a barbecue. What can I bring to this conversation? What can I bring to this event? I love Christy. When Christy said, I want you to be on here, all I could think about was, okay, who am I going to speak to? She gave me a rundown. What can I bring to the party? I know if any of you guys like it and we resonate, we'll end up doing something, or if not, just telling really bad jokes while we drink too much whiskey somewhere sometime. But I knew that I had to bring to the party before I could receive.
Yep.
Now, here's the funny thing. I really expected you to get it faster than that, Kristen. But anyway, thanks for playing. But when I do a guys event, they are god awful. They end up on the 8th. Who's going to be there? You know, what shall I wear? You know, who am I going to meet? Who are you going to introduce me to, Steve? What celebrities are going to be there? And then like maybe the 12th thing is, can I bring a 6-pack of beer? You know, it's just, the guys are notoriously crap at it. You know, so that's what you got to think about. In any relationship, what can I bring to the party? Lead first, ask second. Thanks for playing, Kristen.
Sure.
So, Steve, tell me, what do you give to the clients?
I give them what they couldn't think of doing. You know, clients come to me and we always have a joke that the shorter the email is, the more the client knows you and you know the client. You see, I gave you the example of the client that wanted a dining experience in Florence. That was it. He already knew that I imagine and do more than he can. You see, everyone here, I'm going to ask you directly, and by now you already think I line you up to laugh at you or whatever, but do you give your clients what they ask for, or do you give them what they need? Now, if the answer's number 1, start typing up your resume, because you're going to be selling burgers in McDonald's real soon, because Amazon's going to take your business. What you've got to do is challenge your clients to get to the reason behind the request. And I will give you the most confrontational, rudest word in the planet that I want you to feel as though you're sponsored by and have to use at least 10 times in every conversation. And Christy won't bleep this one out. The word is, why? A client will come to me and they go, hey, I want to meet Elton John. Why? Well, he's great. In fact, I'll miss out on that example because I've got to really, actually, no, I won't. I'll tell you the story about that if I can. I had a client contact me, actually, rephrase. I had a prospect contact me, but the guy was a class A dick, so we didn't take him on. And he contacted me and he said, hey, I want to meet Sir Elton John. I believe you're looking after his Oscar party. I need you to introduce me. So I said, okay, great. Yeah, we can do that. Why? He's like, well, he's one of the greatest singers. He's an icon. He's a living legend. He's going to die soon, and I want to get a selfie with him. That was his answer. And I said to him, that's it? Yeah, that's it. So I said, okay, let me see what I can do, and I'll come back to you. I never took his phone number down. I never took his email down. Didn't care. He wasn't getting a call back from me. Then we got a phone call coming to my office when we were in Palm Beach. And one of the girls came through to me and she went, I got a guy on the line. And he sounds like the guy, because I told the whole office about this dick. I said, he sounds like a mate of that guy because you never got back to him. I said, why? What does he want? He wants to meet Sir Elton John at the party and he wants you to introduce him. So I went, put him on the phone to me, I'll get rid of him. So I put him on the phone. Actually, I made a mistake. I actually put him on voice on the loudspeaker so everyone could hear me. And I went, hey, how you doing? Steve Sims here. I hear you need something. What do you need? He said, hey, how you doing? I want to meet Sir Elton John. I want to get a picture with him. I said, oh, okay, great. That sounds fantastic. Why? He said, well, he's an icon, he's a legend. I don't know how many more years we've got of the great man. So he used the same term, but just kind of reworded it slightly. I do remember that. He said, I don't know how many years, and I want to have a chat with him. You know, there's things. And it was the way he fell off at the end and said, there's things, that challenged me to go further. So I said to him, what things? I lowered my voice to see if he would match it. This is all on loudspeaker. I had about 6 girls from the office in my office were kind of listening to this, waiting for me to basically humiliate and annihilate the guy. And he went quiet. And then he said, when I was a kid, my dad would take me to school. He would take me to school and he would pick me up from school. It was our thing all the way up to high school. Never my mum took me. It was always my dad. There to school, pick me up from school. And the first car we had, it had a cassette player in it. And it had a cassette. When we bought the car, it was jammed. It could play, and it was Sir Elton John's greatest hits. And we would play that all the way to school and play it all the way back. And we would sing all the way to school and all the way back. And then he got a new car that had a CD player in it. And he thought it'd be funny to buy the greatest hits album of Elton John. And we played that in this new car all the way to school, all the way back. And then we got to high school. And my dad would take me there and he'd have the music player and I would be leaning out the window trying to make him stop singing. And he'd come to pick me up at the end of school and I could hear Elton John banging out of that car. And I would jump into that car so fast and try and turn it down, but he would never let me turn it down. And I would go home just so peeved, not singing, while my dad next to me is singing his heart and soul out to Sir Elton John until we got back to home. And I was so thrilled when I got a car and I could go to high school on my own without having my dad embarrass me with Sir Elton John. He said, now my dad died about 12 years ago. And I will be going to work, taking the kids to school, going out for a meal with my wife. We'll have the radio on. And the radio will come on and it'll be Elton John. And for 3 minutes, my dad's in the passenger seat singing his lungs out. For random 3 minutes, various times, you never know when, he brings my dad back to me. I want to say thank you. That was it. You can imagine, I'm in a room, there's the ladies, I obviously have sinus problems now. You know, all of this was kicking off. So I introduced him to Elton John, told him this story. It was a loud party. He leant in, told him the story, and I could see him hug. And there wasn't a dry eye anywhere to be seen. Because I had dared to challenge the guy to a why. I could have just gone, you want to meet him? Great, I'll send you the invoice. But I dared to challenge him to find out why. I dare you to do the same. Someone wants to do something. Why is that a problem? Why now? Why do we have that issue? Try using why a lot more like you were sponsored by it.
Thank you, Steve. Anybody have any other questions? I've got one or two.
Where are the tissues, please?
I know Amber's crying over there.
That still gets me. Even today, that the guy, it was a wonderful, wonderful thing.
So, you know, Steve, these ladies are all up to big things. They're up to some really big things, and you know, getting to the next level. You know, what are some tips and tricks? You know, either the carrot or fear. What do you suggest?
Who would like to be in the same position they are today this time next year? Put your hand up if you would be absolutely chuffed with that.
Amber might. No? Okay.
Yeah. Who would not want to try a little bit more, fail a little bit more, get a bit more experience, learn a little bit more education, travel a little bit more, experience a bit more? The fear should not be of you failing. The fear should be of you not trying. A good friend of mine said the definition of hell is to meet the man or woman you could have been. You should not stop trying. And in fact, try often, fail often. And I'll tell you how I do it. I try things with what I call low liability. Have any of you ever had a friend pop over and they've had a handbag with a funny color? that you've never seen before. And then the following day, that's the only color you can see on people's handbags. Or someone turns up and they've got a yellow car and you go, that's a funny color. I've never seen that color before. And then what's the only color of car you can see the following day on the highway? You see, our mind gets opened to things that we are willing to receive. That also comes down to opportunities. I try a lot of different things. One of the things that I do, how many here of us like sushi food? Somewhat. Okay, so we got some people saying they like sushi. How many of us here can speak Japanese? Right. So the fact is, we don't know what the bloody hell we're ordering. So we order stuff that we've eaten before that we know we like. Okay? We have a game in our family, the Sims household. When we go to a sushi restaurant, we try to pick the weirdest sounding entree, the appetizer that we can find. Don't know what it is, but let's try. My kids used to go nuts on this. It's disgusting. Why can't Dad just get the edamame and shut up? But no, we would always try and get something different. Now that they're in their teens and older, they fight over who can pick the most ridiculous thing on there. We do it with Italian food. We do it any restaurant now. Any restaurant. What have we not had? Let's get it. It's a $5 risk to see whether or not you have. I went to an Indian restaurant last night and I like onion bhajis. Last night I had a cauliflower bhaji. Now, if any of you know what an onion bhaji is, it's a big batter ball with onion in it. What I didn't know was in India, this is a North Asian dish, North Indian dish, and it's sauteed with green peppers. It's not battered at all. Absolutely delicious. But we tried something different. We constantly tried something different with a low liability. If we've tried, and we've had some god-awful stuff in our mouth, stuff that we've gone, oh my God, how is that edible? But we've done it. But it opens up your mind to different things. Radio stations. How many of you during the day listen to a radio station when you're working? No, not many of you. Okay. How many of you listen to radio stations? Throw that dial on an ad hoc number and listen to that station for 30 minutes. Okay? There's no liability. You're driving in the car, you're on your Peloton, whatever you're doing, you've now got a different station you've never heard of before. The other day, I listened to a station called MyTuner. It's an internet station. It can get you radio stations all over the world. I literally went on the keyboard to find out what I come up with. I came up with Norwegian EDM. Does anyone know what EDM is?
Oh.
Someone, right. I didn't, okay? Now, what also was happening was this was 12 o'clock in the day for me here in Los Angeles, which meant that it was like 4 o'clock. It was basically the booze hours of Norway, and now playing the classic EDM, electronic dance music of that early in the morning of Norway. Now, I listened to that for, I think it was 30 minutes or 45 minutes. I always make sure that I do 30, 45 or an hour. So it was between 30 to 45 minutes that I listened to that. Had I not listened to that for 30 to 45 minutes, I would not be experienced and educated enough to be able to say without any hint or hesitation that it is the worst bollock music I've ever heard in my life. But I tried it. Try, you know, if you're driving down the road and you've got to turn right to see your mate, turn left. Go a different route. These sound like low liability changes in your life that will make your mind receptive to those changes and those opportunities.
You know, and Steve, if you could take another 60 seconds, or I might give you 90 seconds, tell us about your ROE.
So a lot of people, I doubt this crowd ever has, may have heard of something called ROI. And we live on it. You know, I put this in, I get this out. That's my ROI. How many of you here have ever worked on an ROE? Return on effort and energy. Now, I said to you earlier that I actually worked with the Pope. You could not pay me. The money I made from that deal paid for a third of my house. Okay? I would not do that deal again if you promised to pay me 20 times that amount. It was so painful. was such a draw. You think bureaucracy in America can sometimes have a bit too much red tape? Deal with the Vatican. I won't even say what I was going to say there. It's appalling. It's unbelievable. I got back to my room. I got back to my home. I got back to my family, and I was dead. When I finished that deal, I physically couldn't talk to anyone for 6 weeks. I was that ripped apart. The bureaucracy, the attitudes, the ego was so horrible. So I moved everything on ROE. Hey, I'm going to make a lot of money out of it, but what's the energy and effort going to be like? Well, the effort and energy is going to be great because what you're doing, you're dealing with good people, you love the people. Great, I'm in. But you're working for a narcissist, you're going to make a lot of money out of it, but you're going to see him upset people along the way. That's going to drag you down. And when it drags you down, you get down. How many of you have ever had a bad phone call with someone that you've got off the phone and you're tired from that phone call?
Yeah.
And then it gets worse. Someone that likes you or loves you phones you up and you answer and you go, what do you want? How many of you have ever done that? You love that person. You hate the dick you just got off the phone with, but all of a sudden you didn't give that person any attitude, but you unloaded it on someone that you loved. I was lucky enough to do that to my wife, and she pointed out, you don't talk to me like that. I was like, sorry, babe, I had a bad phone call. She said, well, then stop having those phone calls. And I was like, you're right. I'm coming off of these phone calls. Now, I had my wife that would stand up to me. She's 5'5" of terrifying, but I had her to stand up to me on that. But what if it was a prospect that was just trying to work out if they wanted to do business with you? And you gave them a little bit of that friction, just a little bit, not too much, because you don't know, but it bleeds. A low ROE translates into a cancer, which feeds into all of your good clients. Have you ever noticed that that cancer doesn't feed into the bad ones? It only ever affects the relationships you really loved. And then you're left with a bunch of narcissistic assholes that don't really care in any case. So focus on your ROE. I literally will only do stuff if it makes me happy or smile. That's the only reason I'll do it.
I remember asking Steve, ladies, because he gets to go all over the world. You're with people that we just dream even talking about. I don't know if you remember this, Steve, but I asked you, you know, if I were to create an experience for you, what do you want? Do you remember what you said?
I don't remember what I said, but you know for what it was very boring.
No, he said, I just want to go and work in my garden. I just want to be with my wife and work in the garden.
Yep.
And I'm thinking, that's amazing. So that's
all I want to do. This COVID has been the best thing that could have happened to my trees and bushes in my garden. It's been brilliant. I planted a bunch of trees and then worked out that apparently you have to water them. So I wasted the first bunch, but yeah, that's what I like doing.
Well, thank you, Steve. We are all here to help you. If you need anything, we are all here to help you. Ladies, any last thoughts, any last questions, or just a wave goodbye? Yes. All right.
Bye, ladies. Thanks, Christy, for having me.
See you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.